King Robert won his rebellion and the Targaryens have been cast off the Iron Throne. This state of affairs is unprecedented in Westerosi history. Peace reigns for now, but it won't last long. Great houses will look to assert themselves and test their young king. It is sure to be a chaotic time. But they say chaos is a ladder. It is a perfect opportunity for a relatively small house to grab power and glory for themselves. We are House Drumm, ruled by Lord Dunstan, the protector of Old Wick, the most sacred of the Iron Islands. It is from here, under the bones of Naga, that the first king of the Ironborn ruled. It is only right that we should be the ones to take control over all the islands and bring glory to the Ironborn as an independent people. But for now we are too weak. The islands are ruled by the groveling Greyjoys, who took advantage of Black Heron's fall, and by kneeling to Aegon the Conqueror they secure their position as the Lords Paramount of the Iron Islands under the Iron Throne. If we are to overthrow them, we must spread our influence beyond Old Wick and grow our strength. First, we must maximize our personal strength within our own domain. The castle of Ygg Spear is ruled by a petty lord. After changing the laws to increase our authority, we were able to simply order him to give up his holdings to us. This increased the levy we are able to raise by a quarter. To further increase our strength, we must spread our rule to the other islands. To our west is Great Wick, the largest of the Iron Islands. If we are to take the lordship over all the islands, we must control it. However, it is unified under House Goodbrother, and though their lord is a craven, their host is much larger than our own. So for now, we will look to expand elsewhere. To our east is Orkmont, a medium-sized island ruled by 4 families. Unlike most islands, it is not unified under a single house. This makes it the perfect first target. House Cod are the most powerful of the Orkmont families. This is a disgrace, as they are descendants of thralls who rose above their station. By taking their lands, we will be increasing our own strength, as well as bringing honor to the Iron Islands. We sent Theomore, the drowned man of Naga's Hill, to justify a reason for us to invade Orkmont, and started to prepare for war. We already had a regiment of reavers, heavily armed and armored footmen, who were the elite of our army. We stationed them in Drumm Tower Castle, where they would receive the best training and equipment, as they would be the hammer with which we shall smash the enemy host. But we will also need to break through the enemy walls, so we spent most of our treasury on training our regiment of mangonels. Hopefully, this would significantly increase our sieging speed. Lord Dunstan himself has lived a long life, filled with battle and glory. He has proved his martial skill, as well as prowess in personal combat. But to put his house on a path to kingship, he will also need to be a skilled diplomat. To this end, he decided to focus on statesmanship in order to gain allies and inspire support for his cause. 3 years later, our drowned man succeeded in justifying our claim on Greygrave, the lands held by the Cods. It seems that the Cods are aware of their precarious position, so they have allied themselves to the Sunderlys of Saltcliffe and the Goodbrothers of Old Wick. The Sunderlys are not a big worry, but, as I said, the Goodbrothers are far too powerful to take on. Tom Cod is the brother of Lord Kellan Cod. His betrothal to Gudrun Goodbrother is the basis for their alliance. By getting rid of him, the Goodbrothers will have no reason to interfere in our invasion. Thankfully, their spymaster also has an interest in disposing of Tom, so in a couple of years we will be able to attack. In the meantime, we sent our drowned man to Nettlemont, the traditional capital of Orkmont. If Theodore is successful, we will be able to fight 2 wars, one after the other, and we will control half the island. After a few years working on his diplomatic skill, Dunstan realized that befriending your subjects will make them serve you that much harder. So, in a hope to spread his influence even faster, he started a correspondence with Theomore, still working on the Drumm claim on Nettlemont. Hopefully, this would result in the drowned man putting more effort into claiming the island of Orkmont. This is where a plot against Tom came to fruition. He drank the poison wine, ending the Goodbrother alliance and leaving the Cods vulnerable. We immediately boarded our longships and set sail for Orkmont. Dunstan led the host himself, carrying the ancestral Valyrian steel blade Red Rain. He decided not to attack the god host directly, so his warriors would have time to properly disembark and regroup. This also gave time for the gods to be reinforced by their Sunderly allies. Together they were brave enough to attack us head-on. It was a close battle, but we won. After that, it was only a matter of time before they surrendered. We now have a foothold on Orkmont. By letting our wife help us in managing our domain, we were able to directly rule over the formerly called lands. This massively increased our power. It is then that Theomore finished the claim on Nettlemont, held by the Tawnies. The Tawnies are allied to the Nettleys, but as they are both minor houses, we will have no trouble defeating them. As soon as our troops recovered, we attacked. The Tawnies called their allies to help them, and the Nettleys answered. Dunstan was able to intercept the meager Netley host before they could unite with the Tawnies, defeating them easily and gaining an even bigger advantage in the war. He then turned to the Tawny host. They too didn't put up much of a fight, quickly retreating behind their castle walls. Their defeat was now inevitable, but the castle of Nettlebank was formidable. Even with our mangonels, it would be a long time before we could take it. But Dunstan saw that the Tawny's vassals, Bloodleaf and Gellywood, were not as well fortified. So, by ignoring the main castle and sieging down the weaker ones, he was able to end the war quicker. Nettlemont is now ours, but Dunstan cannot hold all these lands himself. He kept Nettlemont as it is the traditional capital of Orkmont, but he gave the castle we took from the gods to his son and heir, Dennis, hoping this would prove as a useful training for when he became head of House Drumm. During this war, Dunstan's hopes to befriend Theomont were dashed when he left the mortal plane to feast in the drowned god's watery halls. He was replaced by drowned man Timor. Timor proved himself by finishing the claim on Orkwood, the richest part of Orkmont. Dunstan started trying to befriend his new drowned man. Thankfully, this one has much more in common with his lord than the last one, so it should be easier. The Orkwoods were weak and had no allies, so we took advantage and struck immediately. The Orkwoods hastily made an alliance with Spars, a minor house from Great Wick. They did not pose much of a threat. We easily smashed the Orkwood host and began sieging one of their castles. Only then did the Spars arrive to try and help their ally. But they proved to be stupid as well as weak, as they tried to attack our superior force from the sea without disembarking properly. Victory was ours, and we controlled most of the island of Orkmont. We were able to create the High Lordship of Orkmont, entrenching Drumm rule over the island. Even Lord Paramount Balon recognized this when he ordered the Nettleys, the last independent house on Orkmont, to become our vassals. Now it was time to set our sights on a larger target. The cowardly Lord Gorold Goodbrother of Great Wick is complacent. His rule is one of peace and diplomacy. This has led to the host of Great Wick to become even larger than before, and he has made many alliances all over the Iron Islands. Even though we control more land than ever before, our warriors are tired and spent. We still cannot hope to defeat them on the battlefield. To fix this issue, we will spend a few years resting and consolidating our power. At the same time, we will find friends among the lords of Great Wick who are not happy with Gorold's rule. With their help, we can have him assassinated. This would result in most or all the Good Brothers' alliances to break, as well as reducing their personal power due to the sudden death of their lord. And we will send Timor to fabricate our claim on Great Wick. It would take far too long to conquer the island one county at a time, so we will wait for him to create a claim on the entire island, no matter how long that takes. A couple of years later, Gorold had a meal that didn't quite agree with him, and his son Graydon became the new lord of Great Wick. At 16 he was already a man grown and a capable fighter. The Goodbrother dynasty was not much weaker. Luckily, he was no more loved than his father, and as we did not yet have a cause for war, we decided to get rid of him as well. Some time later, he was gone, and the lordship of Greatwick passed to his brother Gormund. At this time, Greatwick was embroiled in a civil war. The Good Brothers of Corpse Lake decided to push their claim on Greatwick against the Good Brothers of Hammerhorn. Whoever wins, this is good for us, as it will surely weaken them. As his ploy to weaken Greatwick was showing results, but Timur had not yet managed to fabricate a reason for war, Dunstan looked back on his long life. He thought of his many martial achievements, as well as growing diplomatic acumen. He reflected on how people think him arrogant. It wasn't arrogance to know your true worth. He decided to tell the world this through writing. He became a poet. Just as he rules the battlefield through red rain, he will rule the parchment through the pen. This does not mean he grew weak in his old age. While waiting for the drowned man to do his work, he led a reaving in the stepstones. He did lose to one of the ASOIF lords, which meant he didn't have much to show for his efforts, but it is all part of the old way. Eventually, the Good Brothers of Corpse Lake won the war for Greatwick, securing their rule over the islands for now. Something interesting happened then. Someone claiming to be Aegon Targaryen, the true lord of the Seven Kingdoms, landed on Westeros and declared war in a bid to take the Iron Throne. This was far away from the Iron Islands, and the boy only had 10,000 men, making it unlikely for him to win. This was not likely to matter to us much, except that the Good Brothers of Hammerhorn refused to answer King Robert's call to arms. This meant that they no longer had the king's protection, and while Timur was yet unable to claim all of Greatwick, he did fabricate a claim on the castle of Hammerhorn. We have to strike quickly, before Robert's war is done, and we can gain a foothold on Greatwick. Even alone, Hammerhorn is a great castle, allowing our enemy to raise a large host 4,000 strong. If we are to defeat them, and quickly, we must have more soldiers. We hired a sellsword company, as well as allying the minor house of Sunderly. Corpse Lake Good Brothers also took advantage of this to raid Hammerhorn for treasure. With all this, we would win eventually. But we needed to win before the Targaryens lose, or Hammerhorn will once again be folded back into the High Lordship of Greatwick. We assaulted the minor castles around Hammerhorn itself, hoping to win sooner, and losing many men in the process. Unfortunately, we failed to win before Robert finished his war, and Hammerhorn was once again under the protection of the Good Brothers of Corpse Lake. We could have ended the war there, but we had come too far to stop now. Dunstan decided to continue the war against Greatwick. If we won, we wouldn't get the whole island, but at least we would have a strong base from which we could mount further conquests. We won a few battles, and it looked like the war would be won eventually. But then disaster struck. Dunstan's old age finally caught up to him, and his body betrayed him. He knew that he would feast in the Drowned God's watery halls soon, and he didn't want the Drums to be at war with another house during succession. So he sent an offer of white peace to Lord Aeron Goodbrother, who, losing the war, was happy to accept. Some months later, in the year 304, Lord Dunstan died of old age, and was succeeded by Lord Dennis. He was groomed by his father to follow in his footsteps and continue the Drumm martial tradition, as well as to strive for an independent kingdom of the Iron Islands ruled by the Drums. Dennis had to prove himself to his new bannerlords, and an opportunity to do just that presented itself. Just before Dunstan died, Lord Paramount of Westerlands, Tywin Lannister rebelled against King Robert, and once again the Good Brothers of Hammerhorn refused to participate, making them open for attack. While Dunstan didn't manage to take Hammerhorn, he almost succeeded. This means that his claim was passed down to his son, Dennis, so we have a right to attack immediately, and after extending the sellsword contract, we did just that. Dennis proved himself as a warrior, winning a glorious battle. Unfortunately, Tywin's rebellion was swiftly crushed, and once again Hemihorn escaped our conquest. We didn't continue the war against all of Great Wick this time, however. There would be time for that later. For now, Dennis decides to maneuver the politics of the Iron Islands to his favor in preparation for the conquest of Great Wick. An assassination here, a betrothal there, will ensure that when the time comes, our victory will be assured. In the meantime, he will make a name for himself by reaving in Essos, and by not succumbing to his greed like his father, he will bring wealth and glory to his house. Years later, Timur finally came through and succeeded in justifying a Drumm conquest of all of Great Wick. Dennis has spent his time making alliances and interfering in the Good Brothers' affairs. As a result, they are politically isolated and stuck in another civil war. This is the perfect time to strike. We raised a host on the island of Kor's Lair and crossed onto Great Wick. We sieged down a couple of their peripheral castles, hoping that they would come to us and give battle. Instead, they decided to go around us and attack our capital county. We turned our armies around and caught them there. It was an easy victory. Later, we managed to corner a smaller host which had split off in the last rout. None of them survived. Sting Island became their final resting place. Final victory over the Good Brothers seems assured. We just need to occupy some more of their lands and they are sure to surrender. But then, while we were sieging Corpse Lake, a camp fever struck our army, causing many to lose their lives, including Lord Dennis himself. Urek was quick to step up and take his father's place as Lord Drumm. He is a young man known to be ambitious and diligent, skilled in both warfare and combat, but also a cunning and callous rogue. Perhaps this is why he was able to so coolly take charge. He knew that the war against the Good Brothers was as good as won. A bigger threat against him were his own vassals. If he is to remain lord, he will have to pacify them. Thankfully, because we only control 2 medium-sized islands, we only have a few lords to worry about. They were easily placated by giving them positions in court, and in one case their taxes were lowered to standard rates. This would change when we take over Great Wick, however, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it. As if this war needed another complication, the Good Brothers were infighting again. Because of our invasion, the Corpse Lake's Good Brothers were so weakened that another faction, the Good Brothers of Downdelving, usurped the lordship of Great Wick. This meant that all the fighting that was done until now was for nothing. Urek did not care. A longer war would give him even more opportunities to prove himself. And prove himself he did. Red Rain in hand, he led his army to victory after victory. It helped that the armies of Great Wick were already ravaged by war, but it increased his fame regardless. Soon the war was won. The Drums now rule most of the lands of the Iron Islands. We will soon be able to challenge the Greyjoys for the rule over all the Iron Islands. But not yet. Just because we are lords of Great Wick does not mean we are loved. Urek was able to use his leverage to increase the Drumm authority over their vassals to the point he could truly be called an absolute ruler. This, in addition to the fact that he just usurped the High Lordship of Great Wick, made his new vassals distrust him. To try and create ties of loyalty between himself and his subjects, Urek organized a huge feast, inviting all the lords of Old Wick, Great Wick and Orkmont. Here, he expertly played the scene to get all the guests to like him, often at the expense of others. This got him enough goodwill so he doesn't have to worry about being overthrown in the near future. He then set his sights on his next target, the Greyjoys. Lord Balon Greyjoy is the current Lord Paramount of the Iron Islands. He has always been a loyal subject of the Iron Throne. He has ruled his entire life and is very secure in his power. But just as Lord Dennis learned, no matter how powerful you are not more powerful than death. Lord Balon is an old, infirm man. It is only a matter of time before the Storm God takes him. When that happens, his grandson, Rognar, will inherit the Lord Paramountcy. He is young, unblooded, and not particularly competent. He is the one we will rise against. But while Balon rules, we will bide our time. We will go on a raving to Essos, where we will hopefully build a reputation our enemies will fear. During the raving, Ulrich received word that Balon Greyjoy is dead. Ulrich set sail for home. Upon his return, the new Lord Paramount, Rognar, asked him to become his Pymaster. It was as if he was giving him the keys to the kingdom. Ulrich used this opportunity to announce his claim to the Iron Islands. For now, he is the only one pushing his claim, but that already means that our faction is as powerful as the Greyjoys. If one other High Lord takes up our cause, the Greyjoys will be supplanted as rulers of the Iron Islands. But Lord Rognar, though he is young, shows promise and is liked by his subjects. However, if he is to be removed, his successor would be Merlon Greyjoy, a hunchback. Surely, the Ironborn would prefer Ulrich to a hunchback, unless our people are completely lost to pride. In any case, as Pymaster, we were able to make that happen, and so we did. The island of Saltcliffe was already on our side, even though we didn't directly control it. After letting the hunchback take the throne, we hoped that the lords would join us. We even tried bribing Lord Cregor of Harla in the hopes he would back us. Unfortunately, he stayed silent. It doesn't matter. Even without them, we have 1.5 times the Greyjoys' strength. We decided to press our demand. The hunchback was brave, he refused to give in, and so we went to war. Ulrich decided to wait and see whether Greyjoy would sail up to meet us on our own lands, but he didn't. Instead, we and our Saltcliffe allies invaded the island of Pike, which was the center of Ironborn power since the conquest. Only then did Cregor Harla rise against the Greyjoys. Better late than never, I suppose. At this point, the Greyjoys were fighting all of their major islands. Their home island, Pike, was occupied by us. Their armies were in disarray, and their defeat was imminent. The capital of the Iron Islands is where it should be, the holiest of the islands, held by House Drumm. Now that we are the leaders of the Ironborn, we must guide our people to their old glory. To do that, we must gain independence from the Iron Throne. Robert Baratheon has slain many enemies and rebels over the decades, but no man is immortal, and we do not fear death, for what is dead may never die, but rises again, harder and stronger.